Nau mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Good afternoon and welcome to the 35th Annual Shareholders Meeting of Marsden Maritime Holdings Limited. Welcome to you whether you're joining us in the room here today or online. I'm Murray Jagger, Chairman of Marsden Maritime Holdings. Before we start proceedings, I have a few matters to cover. Firstly, health and safety matters. For those of you in the room with us today, if we need to evacuate the venue, we'll hear the alarms ring and you should follow the instructions of the stadium staff. Please go to the doors with the exit signs and make your way to the car park. The lifts will not be functioning, so you must use the stairs. The stairwell is clearly defined. Bathrooms are through the door through which you entered, and if there is a medical emergency, we will let the stadium staff know that assistance is required. There are two resolutions to be considered today. A vote will be held on each one. All shareholders can vote on all resolutions. All the resolutions are ordinary resolutions and require 50% approval. There will be an opportunity to ask questions after our Chief Executive's presentation and again towards the end of the meeting after voting has taken place. The results will be announced to the NZX and here in the room as soon as the conclusion of the meeting as we are able. With those matters dealt with, I'm pleased to confirm that we do have a quorum with more than 5 shareholders present, and therefore I declare the meeting open. I would like to introduce my fellow directors. Kirsten Andrews, and I'd get them to stand up so people could know who they are. Kirsten Andrews. Kirsten is a member of the Audit and Risk Committee and the Port Ecosystem and Land Oversight Committee. She has been a director of the company since November 2020. Mark Bogle. Mark joined the board in October 2014. Mark is a member of the Audit and Risk Committee and is a director of Marsden Cove Canals Management Limited, representing our board. Tony Gibson. Tony joined the board in April 2018. Tony chairs the Remuneration Committee. Benoit Marcinek. Benoit is a member of the Board Nominations Committee and chair of the Port Ecosystem and Land Oversight Committee. He joined the board in October 2019. Hamish Stevens. Hamish chairs the Audit and Risk Committee, is a member of the Remuneration Committee and a director of Northport Limited. He joined the board in October 2018. And as chair of the board, I am a member of the Remuneration Committee. I chair the Nominations Committee. I'm chair of Northport and North Tugs, and I also attend the Audit and Risk Committee and the Port Ecosystem and Land Oversight Committee as an observer. All of the directors are considered independent. Members of our senior management team who are here with us today: Rosie Mercer, Chief Executive; Vidura Galpothage, our Head of Finance. Vidura joined us in June of this year in a new role. Carrie Williams, our Property and Corporate Services Manager. Stephen Gibson, our Business Development Manager. Mark Forrester, our Project Manager. And Peter Kempster, Head of Marine Operations, who has just recently joined the team in August this year. Thank you all for what you've done and your contribution so far this year. We also welcome our legal counsel, David Jones from Heinzeth Alexander, and Andrew Mather from Computershare joining us here, and our audit partner, Brent Penrose from Ernst & Young joining us online. The notice of meeting has been circulated to all shareholders and taken as read. The company's share register is available for inspection with the share registrar, Computershare Investor Services Limited. I would advise that proxies have been received from 62 shareholders representing 61.47% of the shares. In accordance with normal practice, the minutes of the annual meeting held on the 15th of November 2022 were approved by the directors during the year as being a true and correct record of that meeting. If any shareholder would like to request to see the minutes, please email info@marsdenmaritime.co.nz. Here's an agenda for today's meeting. I will cover the financial overview, an update on our strategy, and an update on Northport. Rosie will present further detail on the financials and an update in our business ecosystems, ESG, and the outlook for the year ahead. From there, we will move to voting on resolutions and general business. There will be several opportunities to ask questions after Rosie's presentation, after each of the resolutions and in relation to those resolutions, and then following the voting just before I close the meeting. We have two resolutions today, both of which relate to the election of new directors. I'll address each resolution in turn later in the meeting and invite questions specific to each of the resolutions. For those who are attending online, a guide to virtual meetings was sent to you with a notice of meeting, and I don't suppose to run through how to ask questions on that. Turning now to the year under review. The financial year 2023 has had some absolute highlights, and as we know, one weather-related low point. Firstly, the highlights. On the executive front, I'm delighted to reintroduce Rosie Mercer, our Chief Executive. Rosie started with us on the 1st of July 2022, so now has completed one full financial year. Rosie was at last year's meeting and had been with us for just over 4 months at that point. One of her achievements in the first year was to identify the skill sets needed across the business that would enable us to sharpen our focus and strengthening the business foundations. The importance of this was apparent when we started to navigate the aftermath of Cyclone Gabrielle. The progress that has been made on matters that will drive the long-term performance of the business have been heartening, and we'll tell you more about those throughout our comments this afternoon. Despite the impact that the weather had on our operations, we grew our lease revenue by 32%, as well as marina revenue, including boatyard and goods sold, by 26%. We completed a major industrial development with long-term tenants moving in. We increased the occupancy of our commercial developments, and we continue to lobby for better road rail links for our region. Let's now look at those matters in a little more detail. You'll have read in the annual report of our results announcement how the year played out financially. We reported total revenue of 11.3 million, up 29% on the prior year. This comprised lease revenues up 3.7 million to 4.8 million, marina revenue, including boatyard and goods sold, up from 4.8 million to 6.1 million. As at 30th of June 2023, our investment properties were valued at 110 million, and overall we had 196 million in assets, so land development makes up over half of our assets. Against the asset base, we held $32 million in debt. After a significant upwards movement late last year, investment property values reduced this year by 0.03 million. However, our marina valuation increased by 3.7 million due to a continued development and focus on marina operations. Earnings before land revaluation, interest and tax was up 7%. However, higher interest rates on our borrowing, together with lower volumes through our joint venture business, Northport, led us to record a net after-tax, including asset revaluations, of 7.9 million. This was down on the prior year's 13.1 million, which had the benefit of upward revaluations of investment property of 3.9 million. That reduction in earnings, when applied to MMH's dividend policy guideline of paying up to 70% of net profit after tax, and before asset revaluations and fair value movements, saw a fully imputed dividend of 13.5% per share being declared, down from 16% since last year. MMH plays a significant role in Northland's economic development. Our 180 hectares of prime commercial property is in an enviable location, enabling to be one of the most significant drivers of the Northland economy and supply chain. Inevitably, with the opportunities it presents, comes the downside with events like Cyclone Gabrielle. The cyclone demonstrated to us the fragile nature of the roading infrastructure within the Northland region. Rail has also been fragile, and the North Auckland line is still closed since the weather event. We continue to advocate for the role of rail and support the line reopening and the commitments to the Marsden rail spur. While this is not something we can control, we are strong advocates of it and help take trucks off the road, make our roads safer for our community, and reduce our region's carbon emissions. We will continue to work to influence improved connectivity for rail and road improvements with Northport's development plans to maximise the value of MMH, of its prime position and the role it plays in supporting Northland's social and economic growth. For the past several years, I've presented this roadmap. It's a good summary of the milestones we have achieved, what's in progress, and what's on the horizon. And it's for the 30-year timeframe that we look at. During 2023, we have made significant progress on modelling how our business could change, and as a result, identifying the capital funding that needs to be in place to fund the assets and plans looking out 3 decades. This is the period that we need to consider to ensure MMH is future-proofed and financially sustainable. As previously reported, this is a complex piece of work, and while it has taken some time to build momentum, we are pleased with the progress we are making now. Last year, we advised shareholders, consistent with our strategy, we need capital. We are undertaking a strategic review and have retained an advisor to assist us in considering our options. In 2020, we updated our business strategy. We have shared this on our annual report, and we have used this to guide our annual meetings in recent years. I'd like to now take some time to recap that strategy, and I want to reinforce that despite a change in Chief Executive and Head of Finance, and despite a volatile year, the testing of our strategy leaves us confident it is fully fit for purpose and remains our North Star. Rosie will talk to you about the delivery of the strategy shortly. Our purpose is transforming Northland's economy. This purpose drives every business decision we make. It is the company's reason for being. Our vision, we will enable Northport's growth and actively invest in business ecosystems to transform Northland's economy. Our core values are the principles of how we behave, and these are all about people, community at heart, driven by success, excited every day, and be brave. The strategy recognises 6 ecosystems. These are divided into 2 areas, our core business and expanding the core. The core ecosystems are the port, industrial, commercial and marine, and our everyday operations. And the ecosystems that expand on the core business are the port network and MMH investment network. These ecosystems allow us to do what we have the skill set to do so we can enhance the core. This year, your board undertook a deep dive with management to test that strategy remain fit for purpose. It passed our review. We will continue to test the strategy each year to ensure that it remains our North Star, and we consider the annual business plan together with that delivery on our master plan. How we serve our people and environment and long-term value creation for MMH and our stakeholders are always key considerations. I will now give an update on Northport. Northport is a key investment in the MMH portfolio. As I described in our strategy, MMH is focused on opportunities to support and enable the growth of Northport. And this is even more important in the current economic climate when ports around the country are experiencing a variety of challenges. For Northport, the impact of Cyclone Gabrielle was felt most heavily in relation to the impact on log volumes, which has been further impacted by a reduction in demand from the China markets for logs. Break bulk and break cargo volumes were down 15%, and container volumes were down 43%. The cyclone and other weather events resulted in a significant impact on the delicate infrastructure connecting Northland to Auckland, with the Brenduans being closed 73 days in the year, and the rail still remains closed and likely not to open until early 2024. However, the strong operational management of Chief Executive at Northport, John Moore, has meant that the Northport managing these challenges and the first quarter results are ahead of the previous year. I'd like to commend the Northport team on the work they have delivered in the application for resource consent for the Eastern Terminal expansion. The hearings have recently been held, and it was really pleasing to hear the number of submissions in support of the consent application. There are, as expected, some submissions against, but we are really pleased with the current state of those relationships. We feel there is a foundation for working together to find a way forward to address concerns. A highlight in June was the signing of an MOU with Ocean Flyer and Northern Inc., which will potentially lead to the development of infrastructure to support the Whangarei-Auckland commuter flights. We are very pleased to hear that KiwiRail has now confirmed they have purchased 80% of the land required for the rail spur, and have also the detailed design funding confirmed. As I mentioned earlier, we are a strong advocate of the rail. Another highlight for Northport is the development of our cruise business. We now have 12 cruise vessels booked in total, comprising of 5 booked for the 23-24 season, 6 booked for the 24-25 season, and even a booking for the 25-26 season. I will now ask our Chief Executive to update us on MMH's operational and financial performance for the 2023 year. Rosie.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Rosie Mercer tōku ingoa. Nōku te whiwhi ki atu, he tūmu whakarai ahau ki Marsden Maritime Holdings. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you who I'm yet to meet, I'm Rosie Mercer. As Murray mentioned, I joined in the role of Chief Executive in July of last year. So I'm now about 18 months in. I'd like to acknowledge my management team, who Murray introduced earlier, and thank you all for the significant contribution you have each made during the past year. Murray briefly mentioned the 2023 financial performance. The detail is well covered in the results announcement and the annual report, so I'll provide more context to that financial detail by updating you on the operational performance and then touch on the outlook for the current year. I've spent much of the first 12 months testing and really understanding the business foundations to ensure that, firstly, that we have the platform and assets to deliver on our strategy, and secondly, preparing the operational plan that sits under that and supports the delivery of our master plan into the future. A few key milestones completed this year include: we've secured and contracted more than 20 new agreements to lease and deeds of lease, completed the geospatial information system platform, which now centralises our asset and property information, financial modelling of the business over the next 20 years and the initial identification of the capital needs, commenced targeted maintenance program primarily focused on our industrial assets, and the completion of the property developments, including the 5,000 metres squared bulk store of New Trinza, which had started in the preceding financial year. Given the challenges we faced during the year, including, of course, Cyclone Gabrielle, we're not unhappy with the modest result, but more so pleased that we've achieved continued revenue growth in key areas. Our four main revenue streams that we report on are the property leases at the business park, including the marina commercial area, marina operations revenue, including the rental of berths at the marina, the haul-out operations, and rental income on the hard stand, sale of fuel, and the share of earnings from Northport. The increased lease revenue from our business park reflected the completion of new commercial and industrial developments, including the new Trinza bulk storage facility, and the increase in the occupancy rates of our key commercial assets through focused and relentless effort on finding tenants. The increased marina operations revenue reflects happy customers and boat owners. We routinely get very positive feedback in relation to the quality of the facilities and customer service at the hard stand under the capable leadership of our boatyard manager, Remington Edwards. While our operating revenue was up, so were our expenses. Interest costs this year were close to double last year's. Insurance costs increased by 30%, and we continue to experience the rates increases from Whangarei District Council. Furthermore, last year's almost $4 million of upward property revaluations was not repeated. The dividend from our Northport investment was down 3.5% on lower volumes, with export log numbers affected by the cyclones. All of those moving parts resulted in the profit before tax of just under $8 million, compared with almost $13 million the previous year. At the time I joined the business last July, the team had made good progress in developing an ESG framework and starting to measure the greenhouse gas emissions. To build on this and recognising the responsibilities that lie ahead for reporting entities, we have established a new role of ESG and Risk Advisor. We were very pleased to have Madeline Songhurst join us on a temporary basis to start the role, and now we've welcomed Malak Ali to the role permanently in September. We're particularly pleased to have been able to attract talent like Malak. The role will support the business in maturing our risk and health and safety systems, which is particularly key as we move into the delivery of the master plan. We completed our materiality assessment in the year with the support of Right Communications. Interviewing a wide range of stakeholders and customers proved a valuable exercise, which feeds into our business planning. The materiality matrix is provided in the annual report. As a reporting entity, we are required to complete our first climate-related disclosures on the current financial year. We are commencing this work presently and look forward to sharing more about this with you next year and over the next year. The volatility we've seen in just the past 12 months is a prime reason that my focus since I joined the business has been to do a deep dive to understand the strengths of our assets and our business's four ecosystems. Identifying areas where we can better manage those assets and those ecosystems will strengthen our performance and outlook in the long term. Our business decisions are driven by our strategy and a master plan. Together, these will help us develop a meaningful commercial footprint to support the region's growth, enable the port's growth, and see us actively invest in the long-term transformation of the Northland economy. Our strategy framework is based on the port, marine, commercial and industrial segments or ecosystems, which are our core business. Those segments then directly link to and drive opportunities outside Marsden Maritime Holdings' owned land to support the growth of our business and to support Northport. The more we can support off-campus growth, the more we'll get back in return on our owned assets. Turning now to take a little deeper look at the performance in our four main segments. In the industrial area, we worked with existing tenants who want to expand their businesses and are considering how we can provide solutions that work for both parties. We have felt the impact of the challenging economic climate and have worked closely with customers to develop proposals that are both fit for purpose and commercially achievable for both. We are excited about the potential customers we're currently working with and expect to announce more on these during the year ahead. In the marine ecosystem, our investment in a 610 square metre smart shelter for our marina business attracted Able Marine as a tenant, with them relocating their business from the South Island to join the service provisions of our boatyard. During this year ahead, we will prepare the detailed plan for the marine ecosystem, which will include planning for purpose-built permanent buildings for the boatyard tenants reinforcing our reputation as a high-quality marine services hub. In our commercial ecosystem, we saw higher occupancy levels at our commercial units and a range of pop-up stores added to take advantage of units vacated for the rejuvenation project. The rejuvenation project had a disappointing setback with a key tenant unable to complete one of the key conditions for their agreement. We've pivoted from this setback, securing 3 new agreements in the intervening time, and our project manager, Mark Forrester, has been able to get started on the rejuvenation project in the past month. The team has focused diligently on getting the occupancy levels up in our new build commercial assets, while also renovating older buildings to create new spaces, such as the recently opened Botolo at the Marina commercial area. The port ecosystem includes the developments that support the growth of Northport. At the port ecosystem, we completed the 5,000 square metre bulk storage facility in close proximity to the port. This facility is on a long-term lease to Nutrinza, which imports specialist feed solutions for New Zealand farmers. We also welcomed 2 new tenants, Containerco and Smith Crane and Construction. We've also progressed discussions with port tenants to improve asset use efficiency by repurposing existing sites and creating a shared space for tenants that want more flexibility. In addition to working with parties for several new builds, we've identified a suite of projects to bring to the market over the next 3 to 5 years. Our relationship with Northport is key, and I have very intentionally worked on supporting the team to strengthen the relationship across the management levels. Management regularly meet with and engage with Northport, which creates the foundation we need to really be able to deliver on our goals of supporting Northport's growth. We have some exciting prospects in discussion and are confident that we can contribute a significant amount for Northland's economic prosperity. As I mentioned, we see benefits in investing outside our immediate footprint. An example of this is our consideration of buying the land on which the Aruku Landing Conference and Event Centre was to be built. At this stage, the government funding has been withdrawn. We hope this situation will be revisited by the incoming government, as it would offer a welcome boost to Whangarei's ability to host events and unlock the potential for a new 4-star hotel for Whangarei, creating capital, economic and social benefits for the region. You may already have been aware of Ocean Flyer and its foiling aircraft that Murray mentioned earlier. With our support, Northport signed an MOU relating to the design and development of the infrastructure that will be needed for the aircraft to operate from Whangarei. This is an exciting development that has the potential to significantly increase our connectivity with Auckland and other regions around New Zealand. We understand that at this stage, services are expected to commence in 2026. I trust that gives you a good sense of Marsden Maritime Holdings' business priorities and activities. Before I hand back to Murray, I want to give you an update on trading for the first 3 months of the 2024 financial year. The first quarter to 30th September 2023 has seen further softening of the export log volumes through Northport compared with last year. But as was mentioned earlier, Northport has managed to weather this and is ahead on the same quarter for the previous year. For the MMH parent entity, there has been continued growth in the industrial, commercial and marine operations revenue, which is ahead of last year's first quarter, being 2.1 million compared to 1.9 last year. This has been offset by the significantly higher insurance and rates cost increases for the upcoming year. Additionally, the interest cost continues to increase with higher interest rates being charged. When we consider the uncertainty of the current economic environment, we are mindful of our need to continue to manage the year ahead very diligently. That concludes my comments. Murray, back to you.
Thank you, Rosie. At this point, I'm happy to take questions, firstly from our shareholders online and then from those in the room. Are there any questions? No questions online? Do we have any questions from the floor? Anything related to report we've just presented. The MMH is responsible for 180 hectares.
Yeah.
Correct.
How many hectares do we own there?
180.
180. Okay. Right, that's all right.
Yep. And that includes area that's already got buildings and facilities on. Yes, to customers. Correct. Correct. Right. Any further questions? No? Right, now let's move on to formal voting and resolutions. Only shareholders, proxy holders, or corporate representatives of shareholders may vote on today's resolutions. All resolutions are ordinary resolutions and are required to be passed by a simple majority of votes. Voting will be done by way of poll for each of the resolutions. No seconding of resolutions is required. The directed proxy votes received will be displayed for your information after voting, and on the two resolutions, and once the two resolutions have been completed. I'll now move on to each of the resolutions set out in the notice of meeting. Explanatory notes have been provided for each resolution. My fellow directors and I will vote all undirected proxies in favour of both resolutions. I will take the text of each resolution as read, but would like to first take the opportunity to thank the retiring directors, Mark Bogle and Ms. Kirsten Andrews. Mark first joined the board in October 2014, and as I mentioned in the introductions, Mark is a member of the Audit and Risk Committee and is a director of Marsden Cove Canals Management Limited, representing our board. Having been on the board for 9 years, he is retiring by rotation and in line with our constitution is not eligible to stand again for re-election. Mark, to you, thank you for your immense and valuable contribution to the board over your time. Kirsten joined the board in November 2020. She's made a valuable contribution contributions in being both a chartered accountant and coming with extensive property consulting experience. She has a varied and interesting work portfolio and in the property sector and has brought this to add rigour to our governance of the property portfolio. She has been a member of both the Audit and Risk Committee and the Port Ecosystem Land Oversight Committee. Disappointingly for us, she has decided not to seek to be re-elected. Kirsten, thank you so much for your knowledge of property matters you have brought to the board. Thanks. We will miss both Mark and Kirsten. The nominations for resolutions 1 and 2 have been received and selected by the Northern Regional Council. As the auditors are appointed by the Office of the Auditor General, we do not need to vote on this item. This is dealt with under Section 19 of the Port Companies Act, which advises the Office of the Audit Office is our auditor. Resolution 1, as an ordinary resolution that John Sproat be elected as a director of the company. I'd just like to invite John to come up and say a few words before we vote on this election.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko John Sproat tōku ingoa. A number of you have probably read this already, so what it tells very briefly is that I was a corporate lawyer. I'm now a retired lawyer, so I don't want to be tarred with that brush. David, thank you. I've also had recent experience, governance experience with a couple of major companies, New Zealand Post and Kiwi Bank. I've got ongoing governance roles with a number of Māori organisations, Central North Island, but also in the Wairarapa, which is where I'm from. I have sporting experience, and it's great to be in this room because I'm on the board of the Hawke's Bay Rugby Union as well. It's great to be in the presence, literally, of some great All Blacks, even though they played for Northland. One of my particular skills is capital markets, debt capital markets, and I understand, and having watched the presentation, can understand why there is a need, I think, for some experience in that area, particular area on the board, because I think there's a real opportunity to make the most of existing assets and further development. That will require capital, and capital comes in many forms: equity, debt, but also structured debt. And I think I could lend some real value in that. So I'm happy to take questions, or do you want to save the questions till later? Anybody got any questions online or otherwise? Okay, thank you very much, and hopefully I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'll ask you now to please cast your vote. It's 2 pages to. Right, resolution 2. As an ordinary resolution that Jared Pittman be elected as a director of the company. I'd like to invite Jared to come up and say a few words before we vote on this resolution.
Ko manaia te maunga ko whangarei te ringa parawa te moana. Iwa i te whenua ko te patuara ki te. Tēnei e mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. Tihei wini wini, tihei wana, tihei wana. My name's Jared Pittman. I'd like to thank firstly Northland Regional Council for the nomination. Also like to, excuse me, I do have a little bit of a rough chest at the moment, so I'll do my best to speak clearer. Closer to the mic. Okay. I'd also like to join the chair in thanking the retiring trustees, the retiring directors for their service and diligence, and also to congratulate my fellow nominee, John. I've had a reasonably long career in the public service, and my governance experience is based mainly around public service boards, but also community boards, and I was the chair of the Patuhara Kike Tiwi Trust Board at one stage too. That makes me a very risk-adverse person by nature. I'm known as a stickler for accountability as well. But I would like to say that the opportunities I see for Marsden Marine Holdings are really in the quality of relationships going forward, and strong connection to yourselves as the shareholders, the community, and wider stakeholders is important to me. If anyone would like to ask any questions of me at this time, I'll be happy to answer them if I can. Otherwise, I believe there's some detail in the paperwork today. There being none.
Kia ora, Jared. Now, I'll just ask if everyone hasn't voted to vote. Has everybody got a pen to vote with? They need one? Right. Thank you. Now, please now select either for, against or abstain for the resolution on your screen or on the voting paper. We'll now move on to finalise voting. Staff from our share registrar, Computershare, will gather the votes in the room and count them and add those to those cast online and those cast prior to 2 p.m. on Sunday, the 12th of November 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our discussion on the items of business. I'll shortly close the voting system. Please ensure that you have cast your vote on all resolutions. I will now pause to allow you time to finalise those votes. Online voting will close very soon. Whilst the papers in the room are being collected, I'm happy to take any further questions. Firstly, from online participants, then those in the room. Yep. That's a really good question. So, Aruku, you will answer that one, Rosie, or do you want me to answer? Aruku, the government have indicated that the funding has been redirected, and so we're just waiting now to see whether the new government coming in are likely to reinstate the opportunity in the future. So it's on hold at the moment, and that's where it sits, but we're still fully supportive of it. Any other online ones? No? Any questions from the floor? No, that's nice. If there are any questions that haven't been addressed or you have during the year that we can answer them any time you like during the year. I think the votes have been collected, so I'll now declare the voting is now closed, and the results of the meeting will be released to the NZX on the completion of verification of voting. Moving now to the proxy votes that were received up to the time proxy voting closed on Sunday afternoon. You will see on the screen the way those votes were cast. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the end of the formal business of the meeting of the shareholders of Marsden Maritime Holdings Limited. Rosie and I have today presented the strategy and the business plan that will drive MMH's medium and longer term growth path. The company is in good shape, and we will report to you on the first 6 months of 2024 financial year in late February. I look forward to talking to you again then. And before we conclude, I would like to again thank our retiring directors, Kirsten Andrews and Mark Bogle, for their immense contribution to our board. Thank you both. And I'd like to thank our staff for your dedication and commitment to the business. I'd also, preempting the outcome of the resolutions, welcome John and Jared to the team, and we look forward to working with you both. I now declare the meeting closed and invite those of you in the room to join us and directors for afternoon tea. I and other directors will be available at any time during the year for you to make contact. I would like to thank you all for attending the annual meeting today and for your ongoing support to help us achieve the results we have shared with you today. Haere rā, ka kite anō.